Zachary, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Maybe you could share your screen.
I will, sure.
And meanwhile, I will just introduce your presentation. So Zachary is a PhD student in the Cosmostat team of CEA. And he works on neural network architecture for MR image reconstruction from undersampled data. And he will also talk about high performance computing and with the use of Jean Zay, which is the biggest supercomputer in France, but also located at IDRIS in Paris-Saclay, and we are very interesting to know how it works and broad aspects of Jean Zay, and also your personal feedback about this experience. So the floor is yours, Zachary. And I can see your slides, so it's
cool.
fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Charles, for the introduction. So yeah, hi everyone. So today we'll talk about something that is a bit specific because it's my personal feedback on how I use Jean Zay, like Charles said, which is the biggest supercomputer in France. And in particular, it turned out that I use it not only for deep learning in MRI, but also for a wide variety of applications. So just in terms of numbers, Jean Zay is a supercomputer, and what is particularly interesting, at least for me as a deep learning researcher, is that it has a certain amount of GPU, actually quite a lot of GPU. It has more than 600 GPU nodes, so more than 600 computers where you have GPUs that are connected. And this amounts to a total of 2,700 GPUs. So in total, if you have access to Jean Zay, you have access to 2,700 GPUs. What is also interesting for a researcher when you work on deep learning is that you need a large amount of storing space, and so Jean Zay gives you access to 30 petaoctets of storing space. Obviously, you don't get that for yourself. You never get it for yourself, but you still get a pretty big chunk of it. And like most of the big data set that we have are way under this this threshold, so it's completely fine. And I think that the most interesting part, at least for researchers that are located in France, and so that's why this talk is a bit specific, because it's about a supercomputer that is only available for people that are located in France. But if you are located in France and you want 10,000 hours of GPU, then it's very easy to get, no matter if you're in the industry or if you're in academia. So that's a super interesting, I think, point, because it means that if you want access to a high performance computing space, and your demands are quite low, so under 10,000 GPU hours, then you can basically apply anytime and you will get access to this supercomputer. It is not our case, and so thanks to Philippe, we managed to apply for a lot more of GPU hours, but I think that it's still an interesting point. So the way to access Jean Zay is not that easy, so I will not summarize it here on a single slide, but it works almost as all the like classical HPCs that you have in Europe, and so you need to apply for an allocation, and you will be given the right to connect to the supercomputer. So for Jean Zay specifically, the procedure is explained in 2 locations on the web. So you have an official documentation, which is the documentation by IDRIS. But then we also tried to make an effort to build a user doc. So that is a documentation that was built by users for users with the user friendliness in mind. So as users, we felt that the official documentation was not that great because it was not a walkthrough the application process, and we wanted to exactly build that and give that to researchers, which is what we did with this user doc, which is collaborative. So if you are ever in need of an explanation, or if you feel that you have something that could improve the doc, please don't hesitate to share it on the link. And so I think that a major blocker for people is that they are afraid that they're going to have no help when they're on an HPC. And that they are going to be alone trying to figure out everything that's going wrong, and that it's going to be very complicated because you're not on your local computer, so you don't have a UI. And to this, I would say that the main aspect is that you have, I think, two main ways to ask questions about Jean Zay. So you have the official channel, which is the official support team, and so far, like all the interactions I had with these people were very satisfying. I felt that it was a very friendly and very helpful team, and they were also very responsive. And so I would say that it's an excellent support team. The second place where you can ask questions about Jean Zay is the GitHub chat, which is associated to the user doc. And so it's sort of an informal forum about Jean Zay where basically users ask questions about Jean Zay and how it works and the different problems that they encounter. What I think is also great is that people from the official Jean Zay support team are now even involved in this GitHub chat, and they also regularly publish updates about the state of the machines, and they try to answer as quickly as possible to the users also on this GitHub chat. So I think it's really great that we have these two channels of communications and that they work well. Obviously, you can also ask me questions if like you don't have an answer anywhere else, or no one else is willing to answer you. And I guess that if you have people around you that are already on Jean Zay, like it should be great to have a community also in your lab. I think the next point I want to talk about is the motivation behind applying to Jean Zay for a project. So I will confess that I think that the process for the application can be cumbersome. In particular, I think that we have seen, it's not official, but we have seen that the process can be even more cumbersome for people who are not European citizens. But I still think that it's very valuable to apply to an HPC. And I think that what I will say here does not only apply to Jean Zay specifically, but it also applies to any sort of HPC that you could have access to, which, like in Europe, for example, would be I don't know how to say it, but I think it's the praise call for projects. And so basically, if you have the possibility to apply to an HPC, you should do it for, I think, two reasons. The first reason is because you will be able to use a large amount of GPUs, and so potentially replicate the results that you see in papers, which at first sight seem unachievable computationally speaking. And like a quick note on that specific point, I know that Hugging Face, for example, the France-based startup, is trying to replicate most of the large language models, and it's doing so by using Jean Zay as a computing resource for this research effort. So I think it goes to show you that using an HPC will allow you to not necessarily get the full amount of computing resources that big tech companies have, but at least a fair amount that will allow you to compare to those big tech companies. I also think that using an HPC, and so using Jean Zay in particular, is very important because it allows you to test a wide variety of configurations for your experiments. So if you have like small scale experiments, or you have reasonable scale experiments, then you will be able to do better ablation studies, more exhaustive comparisons, and use more seeds for each run. And I think that's very important because all in all, I think that this results in better science overall. Before I was using Jean Zay, it's true that I was limited by only a single GPU being on my computer, and I had to run the experiments sequentially. Now I can run many ablation studies, many comparisons, and many seeds all in parallel on Jean Zay, and so it's going to be very fast and it's going to be very exhaustive, and I think that this allows my work to be more robust and also more reproducible because I can use more seeds. So I think that those are the two main reasons why you should absolutely apply for a GPU partition of an HPC. And so now I will make this talk a little bit more personal because I will talk about my own experience with the Jean Zay. Again, here I think that some of the aspects of this personal journey are not necessarily only true on Jean Zay, but they are also true on different HPCs. And I can say that because I have personally used two HPCs. So I had a previous experience with the in-house CA supercomputer, which is called the TGCC. And so it turned out that on this HPC in particular, which is ultra secure, the internet access is overwhelmingly limited, at least when compared to Jean Zay. So for example, you cannot pip install any package if you're a Python user. You cannot clone repositories from Git if you're sorry, from GitHub if you're a GitHub user, or GitLab is the same. So it's very limiting, and for every task that requires an internet access, you need to ask the support to do it for you, which is extremely frustrating. And we don't have that with the Jean Zay, and so that's why I completely switched over to Jean Zay, giving this feedback to the TGCC people. And so I think that's one aspect that you should benchmark before applying to an HPC, in particular if it's something that is going to be time-consuming. Is really like the experience of the other users, in particular in relation to their internet access. So I think that the first thing that you notice when you start using an HPC, at least in my case, is that I had to refactor a little bit of so not a little bit, but most of my code to stick with the workload management system. And so basically, when you use an HPC, you cannot just run scripts as you would on your personal computer. You have to submit them to a workload management system. And so you have to make sure that your code is able to run within this workload management system, within this system. So it can be a bit painful. And two tips that I have are to use libraries that take off some of the load, some of the burden of this task, like Submitit or Dast. The one I currently use is Submitit. I think that it's best suited for my use cases, but it might be that for your use case in particular, Dast is more suited. And so one thing that I want to re-emphasize is that the interactions I had with the support team for all that concerned debugging were excellent. And so it had to be because I had a lot of them. There were a lot of unclear points about how exactly the system works, in particular with regards to how the version management for Python was working, how the package management with Python was working. So it was not that intuitive for me at the beginning. Now it's a bit more, but I did have a lot of interactions with support. And like the major pain points I have with the Jean Zay at the moment are the following. So there were at some points a lot of maintenances that would affect the launch of long jobs. There is also something called the module system, which is a system which allows you to pick and choose which version of Python you want to use and which packages that go along with it. At the beginning, I had a hard time understanding every point about the workload management system, so the Slurm system, and the chain pointing for training is still something that has to be done in a very ad hoc fashion that is very specific to using an HPC, at least the way I do it and the way I've seen people do it. So I think those are the main pain points, and some of them, like for example, using Slurm or using module, they will go away with time because you will be used to it. Some other, like the regular maintenances and the checkpointing are still things that bug me and that could be improved, I think, with the workflow and especially if we found some best practices. And so, like a typical day for me, if I'm going to be using Jean Zay for deep learning for some experiments they have running, because I have read the literature, I have implemented my models, and now I'm trying to see if they run correctly. So the first thing I will do is I will activate my my VPN, because I have to make sure that I connect from the CEA. I will then SSH with my machine to Jean Zay. So the connection to Jean Zay is done via SSH. So you basically connect like you would connect to a server. And then one thing I would do is, for example, to survey or monitor the jobs that have been running. So for example, I can run jobs that are doing training, evaluation, or inference. And there are many ways I can monitor those jobs. And I think the main one is, for example, to use a TensorBoard where you will be able to monitor the evolution of the different losses or the different metrics that you have recorded either when you train a deep learning model, either with a PyTorch or TensorFlow. Then if I see a problem with any of these models, for example, like the training hasn't started or the loss is acting weird, I can debug and visualize like all these tools using DrewPython notebooks that run directly on Jean Zay. So I think that's a very strong point for the use of Jean Zay is that basically you will be able to run notebooks directly on Jean Zay using like the amount of GPUs that you want. And so if at some point you have very small experiments, you want to debug something and understand why it doesn't work in multi-GPU, you want to understand why it doesn't work in a distributed mode, you can do it using DrewPython notebooks if it's something you're very comfortable with. And I think it's super useful that they have this and that they have the possibility to have a UI connected to it. And finally, some of the things I will do or take action based on like the debugging that they had. And so, for example, I can adjust the code or the submission scripts like locally on my computer, and then basically push it on Git and pull it on Jean Zay. So I know that some people they don't use this Git approach. Rather, they use an approach where they have a synchronization between the local files and the files on Jean Zay, but it's really up to you what you prefer. And so in terms of like what Jean Zay has been in numbers for me, so I've used it for almost 1.5 years, and it allows me to publish 8 works, submit 2, and I have now 2 in preparation. It's also allowed me to secure the second spot in the FastMRI 2020 challenge. And all of this was done at the cost of consuming 80,000 GPU hours. So it's quite a lot, and some of it is due to the fact that I am benchmarking a lot of deep learning algorithms. And now me and my team, we still have 30,000 GPU hours, which are left to be consumed. So thank you for your attention, and I will now take any questions.
Thank you very much.